One game can turn into thousands of dollars. In this video, I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know and make it very easy to understand so that you can start to feel confident and place your own bets. So let's jump right into it. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is the money line, right? Because the money line is the most simple to understand. It's the one that I can break down to the easiest terms. So to make the money line simple, the money line is who's gonna win, who's gonna lose. But the money line is straight up. It doesn't matter how many points, it doesn't matter what happens, it's just who's gonna win or lose. Now let's dive into what these numbers actually mean. If it's a minus sign, that number always tells you how much you would need to bet to win $100. In this case, you would need to bet $230 just to win 100. So ultimately, if you were to bet $230 and the Celtics win that game, you would win $100. Once again, if it's a plus sign, the number tells you how much you win if you bet 100. So if you bet $100 on the Mavs and they win, then you would win $190. And you'd ultimately get back $290 because it's what you win plus your initial bet. You might even think, why would anybody ever put up $230 to win 100 when you could do it the other way around? Well, there's a ton of factors. So let's say I was to take this bet and I wanted to bet $230. It shows me my expected payout would be $330 because I would win the $100 and my payout. But watch this. What if I had a lot of money to play with and I wanted to put $1,000 on the Celtics? Then my payout would be $1,400 because I would essentially win for 100. So if you're a Celtics fan or you're somebody that feels like the Celtics are gonna win game one, you could for sure take that bet. Now, what if I took the Mavericks and I said, boom, 100? Like I said, it would show you it would give you the $290 back because it's the $190 you win plus your $100. But what if I said 1,000? Then boom, I would win $1,900 and get back $2,900, and you can definitely place bets like that. These personally, in my opinion, are the best type of bets to make. Now let's talk about choosing. Of course, your expertise in a given sport will definitely help here. Now, I'm no expert. However, I think most people could agree that if you've been watching the playoffs and you're feeling risky, the Mavs plus 190 is a pretty attractive bet. So I'm not giving you betting advice. However, I will say you kind of have to know or at least pay attention to the numbers when you are placing any kind of bet. Now, let's talk about how point spreads add a little bit of complexity to the whole mix. Now, a point spread is basically a number set by bookmakers to kind of level out the playing field between two teams that they feel are not evenly matched. So in this form of betting, it's not about picking who wins or loses. It's about how much they win or lose by. All right, so let's look at this point spread for game one, Mavericks versus Celtics. Remember, in betting, plus means underdog, minus means favorite. I don't know why they couldn't just switch that to make it make a little more sense. But this indicates that Vegas has Boston favored by 6.5 points. This means if you take that not only does Boston have to win, but they have to win by 7 or more points. Now, I know you're probably like, Rico, bro, that says 6.5. Well, in basketball, there are no half points, and I don't know if it's just my humble opinion or a documented fact, but I feel like that half point is always there to mess people over. If Boston does win by 7 or more, that's called covering the spread. Now, let's talk about it from the underdog perspective, right? The Mavericks are we're going to say 7-point underdog in this situation, meaning that they're really given a 7-point advantage if you think about it. So if you were to bet on the Mavericks, they could lose by up to 6 points and you would still get the money. You would still win the bet because they've covered the spread. Now let's talk about the half point, because the half point is also called a hook, and they say it's used to avoid a tie or a push where no one wins and no one loses. So with a half point spread, then there can't be a tie. Like if it lands on 6, then theoretically no one would win or lose that bet. So betting the spread requires considering not only who might win, but how much they might win by. And there's more things involved in that, right? There's team strengths, potential game flow, and a lot of other strategic elements that go into the spread. And I won't lie, it's kind of tough in basketball, especially if you think that these type of games are always going to be close. So let's talk about the odds on this, right? Because they're both minus 110. So you might be thinking, how are they both favored? They're not really both favored. What that ultimately means is Vegas is not giving much action either way, because ultimately they don't even know and they're not confident in if this spread that they picked is good or not. So if you take the Celtics and you bet 110, you of course win the $100, and if you bet 110 on the Mavs, then you win the $100 as well. So ultimately, just so you understand correctly, if you were to take the Celtics to cover the spread, they have to win by 7 or more, or you lose your money. If you take the Mavericks to cover the spread, then if they win, you get the money. If they lose, but lose by 6 or less, you win and you still get the money. Now that's how point spreads work. They kind of add a layer of strategy to betting as well. Now let's explore another popular type of betting. We talking about the over and the under. All right, so an over or under bet is a totals bet, right? It's a bet or a wager on the total combined scores of both teams at the end of the game. So this ain't about who wins or loses, but about what the total number will be when the clock hits 0. And this number is always set by bookmakers. So in this example, the over and under is 214.5. So if you bet the over on this game, then you're betting it'll go over 214. And if you bet the under, then you betting that it'll go under 214. Now, this is of course where knowledge, or even us, honestly, this one out of all of them, you can not know much and just go crunch the numbers and probably get the most educated best pick by just crunching the numbers. And I'll get to that later in this segment. But it's a lot of things that can factor it, especially in football, which we're going to look at an example in football. But injuries, playing styles, all that kind of thing. So for instance, you could if you know basketball, you could say, okay, in finals games, that's the most defense that's played. 214 divided by 2 is what, 107 each. And you could say, game 1 fill out games might go under, because that's not even to say one team won't get to 107. You might not feel that both teams are going to get to 107. Now, let's look at a football example, right? You could crunch the numbers and look up things like, okay, Dallas Cowboys points per game last year. You can see that the Cowboys averaged about 30 points per game last year, and then you could say Saints, and they put up 23 points per game. So it's interesting because Vegas is kind of going off of last year's production and saying, okay, that's what's going on. However, 29 plus 23 is 52. So you could honestly feel safe with an over on that. But you would also have to take into consideration, okay, do the Saints have the same offense they had last year? Do the Cowboys have the same offense? Also, I know both teams have an indoor stadium, but what if it's raining? Or what if Alvin Kamara isn't playing that game? All these things are things that you would have to take into consideration. All right, now let's talk about where betting can get kind of fun, and we're talking about prop bets. Now, prop bets is short for proposition bets, and these are bets made on specific events within a game. And here's the best part. These events don't correlate with the outcome of the game. These things can range from actions like who will score the first touchdown, how many strikeouts a pitcher might throw. So I'm gonna show you some, right? So here's a prop. Here's a prop bet. You can bet on the entire series. You can bet on the final spread. So you can bet how many more games the Mavericks are gonna win or the Celtics are gonna win against each other. You can bet on specials. Player props, you could do points. Al Horford over 6.5, Gafford over 8.5. You can bet who's gonna score the first field goal, who's gonna make the first 3 of the game. I think Luka is probably the favorite because he's gonna come out and fire the first one, and he's got a good chance of making every 3 he puts up. So you got these player props, then you got team props. So you can do team threes, if both teams to make X threes each, 13 threes each, or you could say either team. You can even bet on even or odd. You know, these are game specific props, who's going to be the leading scorer. So there are all different kind of props, and These are the most fun to me because once again, they're not tied to the outcome of the game. And honestly, we live in a kind of era where people have favorite players and they're drawn to individuals instead of teams. And just honestly, from my experience, a lot of the times, especially when you're talking about the star players, you can more so rely on what they're going to do more than anything. I mean, you can even bet on Bronny James' draft position. Like, it's crazy. Now, it does require some knowledge, so you can't go into these just blind or because this is your favorite player. All right, now we're going to transition to the MLB because I want to show you how to do parlays. Now, this is probably the most common term you've probably ever heard when it comes to sports betting. And this is because this is where you see people win the big bucks. Now, a parlay bet is also known as a multi or a accumulator. Now, it's a single bet that links together several different bets and is completely dependent on all of those winning together. And the benefit is a much higher payoff. The odds of multiple, because the odds of you picking multiple odds correctly is way lower. Now, I want to show you, I'm going to create an example parlay, right? So let's say I was going all favorites, right? So we know the minus is favorites. So the Red Sox are favorites tomorrow. The Cardinals are favorites. The Colorado Rockies are favorites. And the Diamondbacks and the Giants are favorites tomorrow, right? So let's say I picked all favorites. I got the Red Sox, Cardinals, Rockies, and Giants winning. If I bet $100, I would win $684. So if all these teams win, I would win this money. However, let's say everybody else wins, but the Rockies don't. My whole parlay slip is now gone. Now, parlays, of course, are more risky because, like I keep saying, everything has to go right. But because of compounded odds, the potential reward is way higher, right? So the reason why is because when you place a parlay bet, the odds for each individual bet are multiplied against each other. This multiplication of odds makes the higher potential payouts. Picture this, right? You got a bet with the odds of minus 110. That means you need to bet 110 to win $100. Then you got odds of plus 100, even odds, bet 100, win 100, right? Then you got a bet 3. Then you got another bet, and the odds are plus 200, so you bet 100 to win 200. Those odds are called American odds. Now, if you convert all those odds to decimals and you add them up, it would add up to 11.46, and then that's what you multiply times your bet. So if you bet 100 and you multiply that by 11.46 on that three slip parlay, you'd hit $1,146. Now keep in mind, if we place like these bets, if we placed it individually, the payout would be significantly less. Now you can also do multi-sport parlays. You can do games, right? So I could go Braves win today, Mavs win tomorrow. Those are two underdogs. And if I bet $100, I win $625 and I get back $725. So you can do those, or you could do a parlay on who's gonna win the championship in each sport, and those pay out big. So you can go Mavs to win, then you can go to MLB. Let's say I'm picking the Rangers to win again, and then I go to the NFL and I pick the Cowboys to win, and we get a DFW sports sweep. If I bet 100, I'd win $200,000 because look what the odds did. So wow, you could bet 10 cents on this? Nah, see, that ain't enough. If that actually happens, I would advise you to at least $50 so you can get 100,000. But you could definitely bet that. Now, let's talk about all the different sports books there are, right? There are different sports books and they all have different odds, and that's also something to pay attention to, right? So they're all at around 200 as far as the minus for the Celtics and the plus, but you see here DraftKings has the Mavericks plus 190, so they believe in the Mavericks a little bit more than the other guys do. But this just goes to show you there are different sports books and they all kind of hover around each other. Sometimes you'll see glaring differences which you'll know something fishy is going on. But for the most part, that's how you calculate it. So if you like this video, if this video was helpful, please like and subscribe and let me know. And if you want to get in with my betting teaching, I will have a link in the description where you can go. You can ask me for picks, whatever you want to do. And if this video does well enough, then I will show y'all live examples of bets that I've seen that are really close, that I can actually show you the betting slip that won and everything, and do it like that. So Rico gang, I love y'all. Let's get it. We out.